Good morning. Am I heard? Am I heard now? Okay. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Did anyone get that? Verizon. I have Verizon. I believe that's Shirley up there. Am I correct? Let's give her a hand for the fill-in. Yay. As you know, the choir is out on tour. Hence, we get the wonderful musical stylings of the Greer tones. I may regret that later, calling them that. But so you can follow along on our website, mbccucc.org. And there's going to be like a blog with pictures, and so you can see all the different places that the choir members are going. Also, you can follow us on Facebook. I know there's been updates on the Facebook MBCC page as well. So this morning, we are talking about Yoda, which I know is a strange thing to do at a church, but I've spoken about Harry Potter from here, so none of this can surprise any of you. We did do a service project yesterday, and one of our high schoolers said that apparently people, in case you're wondering, do read our billboard out there. Someone said, there's a church that's giving a sermon about Yoda. And she was like, that's my church. It's my church. I don't know if that's good or bad or what, but this week I was at Synod, General Synod, which is the UCC churches all getting together and sort of sending off people to represent the different regions. We are in the Southern California Nevada Conference, and there was about 50 of us at General Synod in Tampa, Florida. I went with my mentor, Marcia Hoffman, many of you know, and we got these fancy bracelets, so I thought I'd wear this. It kind of matches my stole. Do you like my stole? Did you see it? This stole was given to me by my father's priest, a woman named Julie, who's meant a lot to my father and my family since my mother died. So just a special morning. It was amazing to be in Tampa, Florida at the Synod. The weather wasn't amazing. I forgive my throat because going outside into what was a sauna, essentially, and then indoors into what was essentially a refrigerator, back and forth, kind of caused some havoc for my throat and my mind. So if I'm a little woohoo, you'll get that. And it was amazing, though, because when General Synod comes to a city, they plaster and blast not only things on the radio and on TV, commercials for the UCC, but they also have billboards. So we would be walking downtown, and I would be seeing billboards in downtown Tampa for the UCC. And their slogan this year was, I don't know if you love it, I love it. It is, Jesus didn't reject people, neither do we. Isn't that great? So we'd be walking to, I don't know, the tapas restaurant we ate at, and there'd be a bus that would drive by. I'm not kidding you. A bus would drive by, and it would say, Jesus didn't reject people, neither do we, UCC.org. And I thought that was so cool. So, and the theme was imagine what's possible. And so the UCC in general, there's about 3,500 of us there that met, and those of us who weren't a part of the delegation, the people that making some of the business decisions, got to hear amazing speakers. I heard the story of a Muslim. I mean, no one does interfaith and spiritual stuff better than the UCC. I heard the most amazing speakers when I was there. So it was a wonderful time. So thank you for sending me. If you didn't know you sent me, thank you anyway. It was awesome. And thanks to Dylan for so eloquently reading the scripture for this morning, that it comes from Timothy, who is a pastor of the church in Ephesus. And I think I've talked about Timothy before. Paul was one of his main mentors. I call this portion of Timothy the mentor-palooza portion of scripture, because there's a lot of mentors going on here. It's not as big as Romans 16. If you've ever read Romans 16, then I actually read Romans 16 and did a Bible study on it for Women's Fellowship, because out of the 27 leaders that Paul commends, 11 of them are women and they're spiritual leaders. Booyah. So that is a place in Romans 16 where Paul talks quite a bit about the people that have mentored one another in their community. But this is second to me in it, because we have 4 sets of mentors here, if you want to see it. We have Lois and Eunice, clearly a mother-daughter mentorship relationship, passing on the faith. We have either Lois and Eunice or both, and Timothy, right? Paul commends Timothy has been mentored by his mother and his grandmother in the faith. We have the mentorship of Paul and Timothy. And we also have the mentorship of what I know was read today was fathers, the fathers of the faith, but it's really ancestors. So you have the fathers of the faith, what I think Paul's referring to the rabbis that have influenced him and Paul. So we have 4 sets of mentors going on in this one portion of Scripture alone. If you're wondering why I picked the beginning of a letter, the beginning of the letter is almost as good as how a letter ends, isn't it? So those are the people that he's admonishing. So today we're going to talk about mentors. We're going to talk about those people that come in and out of our lives to get us where we need to be. Now hear that. Not to get us where we want to be necessarily, sorry, but where we need to be. So the classic mentoring relationship in sort of the lexicon of movies and sci-fi is Yoda. He was small, like I said, small in stature, but he didn't let that stop him from becoming a Jedi Master. He was a great person, not because of his size, but because of the size of his wisdom. And because he mentored Padawans and Jedi Knights, some of the most famous in the Star Wars lexicon. Empire magazine, I know you all read it, right? Named Yoda as the 25th greatest movie character of all times. That's saying a lot for a puppet, right? I mean, my generation was introduced to Yoda as a puppet. The other generation has probably been introduced to Yoda as more of a CG, kind of character. But I thought that was pretty cool. Now, as we know, Luke has had other mentors. He had Obi-Wan Kenobi, who sort of more apprenticed him. But I wanted to focus on Yoda because I think in our busy lives, our exchanging lives, where people come in and out, where we have a different teacher every year, sometimes every period, right? We have people that come in and out of our lives for very specific times. Yoda comes in, as I spoke with the kids, to Luke's life in a very specific moment. Luke has crash landed on the planet Dagobah. Now, lest you feel bad, I actually had to look all that up because I've seen the movie. I remember the whole him in the backpack and running around and all the, kind of the swampy stuff that Luke has to deal with, but I couldn't remember the name of the planet. But he crash lands on this planet. Little does he know, right? Because everyone's kind of running from the empire, the evil empire. So Yoda has found a place to hide himself, this planet Dagobah. And Luke crash lands, unable to get himself off this planet. And he finds the greatest mentor of his life. Little does he know that's where he's gone. Because Luke is stuck when we find him with Yoda, literally. His starship has crash landed in this swamp, and in fact, it's under swampy, icky, goopy water. He's not flying out of there anytime soon. He's stuck. And like Luke, I think sometimes we get stuck, don't we? And we need people in our lives who can help get us, as I said, maybe not grammatically correctly, unstuck. Obi-Wan had Luke Skywalker and Yoda. Timothy, as we find out, has Paul. Peter had Jesus. And the Cheerios cheerleading squad have Coach Sylvester. I'm not sure I would hold her up as a mentor to have, but nevertheless, there she is. We all need and have mentors in our lives. Mentors are people that come alongside us to share their wisdom and strength and to go along on the journey. This summer, we're talking about the withness of Christ, which is what I talked about in my first sermon starting off this series a couple weeks ago. The Leonard Sweet book, Indispensable Relationships. We're having an indispensable summer where we're talking about the important relationships that make us who we're supposed to be. And one of those relationships we have to have in our lives at different times are mentors. A mentor helps you process experiences. A mentor helps you see difficulties become opportunities. A mentor guides you towards what you don't even know you're missing. A mentor helps you understand your calling, that thing you're supposed to do. And a mentor, most importantly, sees things that you don't. Sees things that you don't. I pray that you have a mentor or have had mentors. And if you don't, I pray that you find one. There's an old ancient rabbi sort of saying that this book, sorry, I had to reach back, the Bible, the Holy Scriptures, is not enough unless you've taken it and studied under the sages, until this has come alive by people who have mentored you out of it. We need mentors. Jesus didn't just bring a book, as you recall, to life with the disciples. He brought himself as a mentor to the disciples. Now, the culture of that time was already set up in the rabbinical time for apprenticeships. So it was a very sort of conventional way to go for Jesus to have these disciples and walk around mentoring them. And for Paul to mentor Timothy, Paul who'd been mentored himself. When I went to seminary, people always ask me, I went to Fuller Theological Seminary in Pasadena, and people ask me, oh, what were your favorite classes? And I always tell them 3 professors were my favorite classes. I ended up taking multiple classes from these 3 professors, Dr. Scholler, Dr. Ray Anderson, and Dr. Marianne Mai Thompson. And only Marianne Mai Thompson's still living, actually. And I remember wanting to learn under them, not because they were the wisest people in the room, although they were, but because their lives spoke of not only wisdom, but pastoral graciousness. They were wonderful people that I wanted to learn from. I admired their theology, but those classes were not the easiest classes. They weren't easy on me, but they were good for me. One of the things I did, when you go to UCC General Synod, you can take, I was gonna say classes, but I was thinking about seminary. You can go to speakers and hear different breakout sessions. And one of the breakout sessions I went to was taught by a man named Eric Liu. He wrote a book, if you've ever heard of it, called The Accidental Asian. Have you ever heard of it? I want to read it just because the title sounds so funny. And he was a speechwriter for Clinton. He's an entrepreneur who believes really firmly in mentorship. And when I was thinking about giving this sermon, which I'd picked this topic months ago, I thought, a breakout session on mentorship. Should I go to that? Yeah, maybe I will. He basically wrote a book where he actually interviewed hundreds of mentors and mentees. And he wanted to kind of compile his wisdom on that process. And in his quest to find out what made a good mentor, he found 3 constant words, constant themes that came up for him. And the first was, a mentor always understands purpose. And the question he would ask the mentors is, who has influenced you, to be more fully who you're intended to be, and how, more importantly, how did you pass that on? Purposefully.